Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Patreon podcast. This week I wanted to talk about the idea of slash and burn, or scorched earth, or basically starting a project over from scratch. I encountered this problem a couple weeks ago when I was working on the Maker's Eden soundtrack. I had been struggling with the cinematic version of the song. Really, I've been struggling with that song for years, and I kept trying things and kept trying to add things to other things that I already had on there and just try to move things around. And eventually I got frustrated and I just started a new project. And sometimes I feel that that's just what you have to do. You have to just recognize that what you're doing isn't working and you just need to start over. And really, this wasn't as catastrophic as it sounds, because I still had all of that content that I made. Because obviously I'm saving my work as I go along. I just started a new project. So once I established a new idea and kind of got momentum on that song, I was able to go back to my old project and pull some ideas that I thought were okay into the new one. But the idea that I just needed to start over, that I just needed to completely wipe out what I had and start over, it's not an easy choice to make, because you've invested so much time in some of the older things that you've made, but they're not giving you that creative inspiration, that creative momentum that you really need to keep moving forward on projects like this, especially projects with a deadline. Thankfully, this project didn't really have a deadline, which is why I had been working on it for so long, but I just really wanted it done. And the Maker's Eden soundtrack, as much as I loved working on that project, it had been hanging over my head for years. And I think that kind of intimidation was also playing a part in how I kind of just approached that album, because I had been working on it for so long. I started feeling kind of obligated to make this like perfect. It has to be completely perfect. I've worked on it for so long, and that's just not how that stuff works. Like I'm at the whim of whatever ideas come my way. And granted, I feel like I'm okay at coming up with ideas, but it was still a really hard process to come through. But thankfully that album's done now, and I'm working on mixing and mastering it. And I do feel like I'm going to go into another topic on that in the future, but yeah, right now I just wanted to talk about the idea of starting over and knowing, I guess knowing when to start over is another big thing. And I think that's obviously it's personal, but I think that you could get a lot of inspiration from just listening to other things again and seeing if you have that creative drive to work on it. Like for me, it felt like I was just walking through quicksand when I was working on this song. Like I was making progress, but it was just exponentially slower. Every time I sat down, like I just did less and less and less on it. And I just felt like this is the wrong way to go. So when I started over, I had a couple random ideas that I just kind of threw on there, and they worked to the point where I was like, okay, I can do something with this. And then I did something with it. And I was really, really pleased with how it all came together. So yeah, it's kind of having that mindfulness and awareness of just being like, hey, this is not working how I want it to. I need to take a step back and reevaluate my situation. And honestly, this happens a lot with the 2-hour track challenge, where I'm like 30 or 45 minutes into a stream, and all of a sudden I'm just like, this isn't working. Like, this is just not the type of music that I want to make today, or this is just not what I expected this song to come out as, or I've painted myself into a corner. And sometimes you just have to hit Control N and start over. Again, obviously save your work. There's no reason not to save your work. Because sometimes you can mine those little ideas for something else down the road. But sometimes you just gotta cut and run, and you just gotta start over. And there's nothing wrong or shameful with that. Because again, it's a learning experience. It's something where you are better understanding what you can or should be doing when it comes to this stuff. So if nothing else, you learned what not to do in the new song. And I think that that's value in its own right. So, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm only really talking about this because of just the direct personal experience of how I've been dealing with this Maker's Eden album for so long. And really the only way that I was able to move forward was to just chop what I had and start over. And, I think that that's completely fair and worth doing. And part of my problem with that, and I'm so spoiled by the 2-hour track challenge where it's like, oh, I can write a song in 2 hours every time, all the time. And it's not really always like that. And I have to come to terms with sometimes music takes like 8 or 10 or 20 or 40 hours to make. And then that's part of the process. And I should be more okay with that. So, but I wasn't really making any forward movement on that song until I started over. And I had the awareness that I should start over. And that, it's just mindfulness. It's just being able to take a step back and look at it and be like, this ain't working. And I was able to finally do that after several years. So yeah, that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being a Patreon subscriber. I really do appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you next Friday. Be remarkable.